We're doing it now. What's up, everybody? This is the David Greene Show. Thank you for being here. To all my fellow real talkers, we have a show today about why housing is so expensive. If you're listening to this live, please remember that you can write a comment and I'll do my best to respond to it as we're recording. If you're listening to this after it has been posted from the live, please leave a comment because I do still check those and I want to get in touch with you. Today's episode comes from the PBD podcast with Patrick Bet David. Really good stuff. If you're not following them, I recommend it. I've been featured on their umbrella shows, Valuetainment, a couple times. Adam Stosnick is a buddy of mine, and you'll hear him give his take on housing. Now, let's all keep in mind, Adam is not a real estate expert. He's more of a finance guy, invests in stocks, sells insurance, and he's a very talented networker that's really close to Patrick Bet David. And they go into their understanding of what is causing housing problems as non-real estate experts. And I got to say, I think that they do a pretty good job on today's show. So I'm going to comment on where I think they got it right, where I think they might have missed it, or where they're just lacking some information. But more importantly, I'm going to be talking about why the information that they're covering is the way it is and what can be done to try to build wealth in a market like today's. Frankly, this economy is incredibly difficult to build wealth in, and I don't have a crystal ball, but if I had to guess, which I kind of do, I think as hard as it is now, it's only going to get harder. I do not think we're going to see the floodgates open and wealth becomes easy to build. I think it's much more likely that we will look back in 5 years or 10 years and say, damn, we had it really easy. Right now, when we're saying it's hard, we only feel it's hard right now because we are comparing it to what it used to be like in the past. So we're going to cover that, the fundamentals of what makes it that way, a decent understanding of the principles that drive an economy and how you can use those to your advantage, how to invest in real estate today, why to invest in real estate today, and what to do to put yourself in a position to be able to invest in real estate today. Because as we're going to learn, many people 30 and under, 35 and under, even 40 and under are finding it incredibly difficult to break into today's market compared to what we were used to. So make sure you do that. Also, today's show is brought to you by Spartan League. This is my real estate university, a mastermind of real estate investors. Spartan League members get 5 calls a week from different real estate professionals that work for me: short-term rental, medium-term rental, rent by the room, BRRRR, long-distance investing, real estate agent training, and more. If you're trying to get a good understanding of how to invest in real estate safely and build wealth in a way that will last for generations, you definitely want to check this out. You can learn about us at spartanleague.com, or you can DM me on Instagram, the word Spartan, to get some information. You can also go to my website, davidgreen24.com, and there is a chat option where you can get a hold of me directly to ask some questions to see if Spartan League might be right for you. All right, let's get into today's video.
One issue for young Americans this election is not student loans, not abortion or guns, but it's housing, okay? Housing. So what are they talking about? Housing, these young people. Housing affordability is a top election issue for Gen Z, according to a survey done by Redfin, with 12% of Gen Z respondents believe they will never own a home due to record high home prices, elevate mortgage rates above 7%, and expensive rent. Elijah De La Campa from Redfin noted the cost of starter homes has increased twice as fast as incomes. The median home sale price in the U.S.
Now, I don't believe that they define what they believe is a starter home, but if you're familiar with my works, I do have a framework that I look at. There's 3 types of homes. And in my next book that's going to be coming out, The 10 Ways You Make Money in Real Estate, it's probably going to be titled something like Better Than Cash Flow. I talk about it in one of the later chapters. So you have in my framework, starter homes, step-up homes, luxury homes. And I define these as starter homes are the houses that are at the bottom of the price point. This is where the kind of house that somebody who is just married, trying to buy their very first house, trying to break into the market, they buy those homes. These are also coveted by y'all, real estate investors, people that are trying to get a cash flowing property. So because starter homes are going to be wanted by the people just trying to get in the market, and the real estate investors trying to get cash flow, and the people that could get a step-up home, but they just don't want to, and the people that maybe travel a lot and want to keep their housing expense low, they always have the most demand. Everybody wants starter homes from my experience. These are the hardest ones to find. Step-up homes are a house that people would buy, but it's almost impossible to save up the down payment for from a regular W-2 worker. We're not talking about wealthy people, just blue collar folks, mechanics, people that run a landscaping business, house framers, construction workers, school teachers, firefighters. If that's your job, step up homes are really nice, big, and good neighborhoods, but you're probably only going to be able to buy one if you take the equity from a starter home and move it into a step up home. That's why I called them that. If you think about like in the Bay Area, a step up home might cost 900,000 to 1.1 million, which if you were trying to save 10% of that would be 90 to 110,000. That's possible to do. That is a long time of making money and saving money to try to build up to where you could put a down payment on a step up home. Most people never will. So they'll sell a starter home and move the equity to the step up home. And then you've got luxury homes, which sit at the apex of the market. They're the pinnacle. These are the houses that have the least amount of buyers for them. They will usually sell less than their asking price. They will sit on the market for a long time. They're usually going to be in the best areas, but they're not practical. These are really, really nice, tons of square footage, helicopter pads, basketball courts in the backyard. We're talking about stuff that only wealthy people would ever even try to buy. That does not mean expensive home because it's luxury. In my mind, step-up homes are still expensive homes. My framework, a luxury house is literally that. It is luxury. It is nicer than a human would ever need. And the only people that buy them have so much disposable income that they don't care.
Reached an all-time high of 390 May of 2023. Despite a strong economy with low unemployment and rising wages, many young Americans find buying a home impossible, with 42% of Gen Z receiving financial support from their parents for rent or housing costs. Holy shit. 42% of Gen Z is getting help from parents right now, while 90% of major metro areas saw an increase in housing supply.
If 42% of Gen Z is getting help from parents right now, meaning like they're living with their parents, that probably means they're not working what I'm going to call a grown-up job. No, I'm not judging anyone. We're not shaming anybody here. We're just looking at this objectively. If you're living with your parents, you probably haven't found your career yet, meaning you're probably not working a job like a police officer. You're probably working a job that's hourly pay, not salaried pay, and you don't have a clear path to promotion. So like grown-up jobs, I don't know a better phrase to use for that, so I hope you know what I mean, typically come with yearly promotions, benefits, and high expectations of performance. You do not get to be comfortable at a grown-up job. When I was a police officer, I don't think there was ever a day I was comfortable. You're always screwing up something. You're always learning something new. You're always realizing you could do better. It forces you to become a better version of yourself to have that job. Let's say that you work for Amazon and you're in their corporate team and you have a crazy fast growing business that you're always trying to keep up with the demands of. You're never mentally comfortable in that job. All right. Now, I personally think that's a good thing. I think, especially if you're a man, you should be in a job that is challenging you every day. That is part of what makes boys into men. This is part of what makes men desirable to the opposite sex. And it's also what makes you useful to society. You don't get a man out of a male that doesn't do hard things, that just tries to avoid hard things all the time. And that is what you want your economy to be based on. You want it to be younger people getting into the workforce, doing easy jobs and growing in skills to bring more value, to get more money, to become more productive. That is a healthy way to scale an economy. When I was a child, like that's the environment my dad was in. This is how people acted. If you fast forward now to where we are, there are still some parts of the country where this goes on, and there's still some people doing this. There are many more than before that are trying to find a job that does not challenge them, that is not difficult. And I know this because I have probably 50 to 80 people working for me at any given time. Less than 10% of them can take criticism. If I tell most of the people that work for me, now remember, the people that work for me have been vetted and I think they're better than, they're like the best I could find. They perform better than your standard person. I just want to make that clear. But if I go to the majority of them and say, that's not good enough, you can do better, I need this out of you, they won't openly tell me, screw you, I'm going to do what I want. But I see the look on their face. They do not like that. They want to be praised. They want their accomplishments acknowledged. They want their butt powdered. They want someone to come along and say, you're so good. I'm so proud of you. You did a really good job putting that spreadsheet together. Maybe next time we could work on improving whatever. And I bring this up just to as evidence to support my claim that people do not love excellence anymore. They love comfort. And when you bring discomfort into someone's life, it's called negative reinforcement. People want to get out of discomfort, so they work harder. That's what poverty is. It's not comfortable. That's what seeing other people have things you don't that makes you want more. It's not comfortable when you see that you could get more out of life. The drive for wealth comes from being uncomfortable with what you have right now. And I personally think that is a healthy thing. You don't like how you look, you're going to want to go eat better. You don't like being weak, you're going to want to go lift weights. There's always a thing you can do to improve your position and the value that you bring to the world. I think as a whole, we have much less people that are engaged and on the path of excellence. More of them are on the path of comfort. And that's going to be the majority of the people that he's talking about here. Generation Z, of course, not everyone in Generation Z fits that pattern, but I think more of them do than ever did before. And it is creating a very big problem when you combine it with our lack of housing, which we're going to get into.
Home prices in the South, particularly Austin, Texas, and Northport, Florida, are falling. Tom.
So no surprise. This is what's going on. When you see an article like this, it really just pisses me off because this is just a little pebble of what is a bigger affordability crisis that's been brought on by inflation and printing a bunch of money. That's what's happened here. And now this is, remember, I always talk upstream, downstream. You hear me talk about that. This is the downstream problem. This is the polluted little lake that's at the end of the creek and the river, and the creek and the river are bringing the bad water into the lake. And why is it bad water? Because it got polluted way upstream. This is what it is. Upstream from these people, that's while they were in high school, while they were in college, if they went to college, or serving a couple of years in the military, inflation was going crazy. We were printing money. We raised the price of assets. And now we have affordability crisis. So the number one issue for Americans when they say it's housing, well, what they're really saying is affordability in America. That's what they're saying. And they're saying currently the affordability is so bad that I got to think about getting support from my parents or living with my parents. That's what it is. And so if you let this in your mind be like, oh, it's the housing market, it's not. It's the leadership of this country, and it's the affordability crisis showing up as the number one issue for this group. The affordability is hitting them hardest in terms of housing.
Well, let me talk to my Gen Z friends out there. I almost going to give an MLK speech right now. I have a dream.
Here we go. I have a couch.
I have a dream. Exactly. I have a couch. Guys, the American dream, it's still alive and well in America. The only difference is the American dream has changed. The American dream of your parents and your grandparents.
This is a wild take Adam's about to give. Very different than what I've heard anybody else say before.
No longer exists. The ability to get a job and work at the same job for 50 years and get a pension and retire and get a gold watch and say, hey, great job, and get a house and get a 2-car garage and have 2.2 kids and have a dog and just live in the suburbs and just have a two-car situation and just work for the same company no longer exists. So stop crying about it, that everything that happened in the past in the 80s and 90s when your parents were starting to make money has changed. So rather than cry about it and bitch and moan, oh my God, I can't, do something different. What's the definition of crazy? Doing the same thing over and over and over again
with no result
and expecting the different results. So what's different? I always say this. The best thing you can do, especially when you're 20s and 30s, to you guys out there, women, you have a different objective, okay? For the men out there, I would encourage you to do the following. Understand this basic concept. The number one thing you can be doing in your life right now, before you have kids and a family, as you're working on your career, purpose over pleasure, purpose over punani, is understand this concept. Low overhead and high flexibility is the key to your life right now. Keep your costs low, keep it moving, keep it grooving, and keep your flexibility high, because you don't know where you're going to end up in the next 2, 5, 10 years. You might work for this company, an opportunity comes up. You might be in New York, you might be in Boston, you might go from Boston to Austin. All of a sudden you're in California. Fuck California, moving to Florida. Well, cost of living in Florida is a little too high. Boom, I'm going to North Florida. Keep it moving. So the cost of a house, when I started doing financial content in 2016 to 18, how much was the cost of an average house in America? $250,000. Okay. How much is the average cost? They say is a median house in America now? $400,000. What's the exact number, Tom?
$390,613.
So save that extra 10 grand, put that to the stock market. What's my point? So if you can't buy a house, stop bitching about it and do something different. Go get a roommate, live with your girl, split the rent, figure it out. I get it. If you have low overhead, take all that extra money that you would typically be pumping into a mortgage payment, into taxes, into insurance, into maintenance, into HOA, and just invest in the market. Now, where should you invest in the market? Get a 401k, get a Roth IRA, get index funds, get crypto.
You'll notice that they'll constantly say we're at an all-time high, we're at an all-time high, we're at an all-time high. Just get used to hearing that phrase, and it doesn't necessarily mean anything significant. As long as we're inflating the currency and making it worth less, you're always going to have a new all-time high. Like, if somebody makes more money in the NBA right now than Michael Jordan made at his peak, does that mean that they're better compensated than Michael Jordan? No, it's always going to be a new all-time high because money's worth less now than it was when Michael Jordan was playing. So housing will always show it's at an all-time high. There's always going to be a movie that breaks the box office record of the movie that came before it because the tickets become more expensive for the movies. This is how inflation works. In my book, Pillars of Wealth, highly recommend you guys check that out. I talk about how many people who don't understand inflation think that we're standing on halfway up a stairwell. And if we don't work really hard to climb up the stairs, we just think, well, I'm not gaining wealth, but I'm maintaining what I have. But because of inflation, you're actually standing on an escalator that is moving down. To stay even, you got to walk upstairs just to stay even because of inflation. All right. Now, when we print more money, it makes the economy do better. It increases the cost of living for everybody, but the escalator goes down faster. So now you got to walk up even more just to stay even. And if you want to get ahead when there's inflation, you got to damn near sprint up an escalator. You got to work extra hard to get ahead. And this is what I think most Americans don't understand. They've been comfortable. They've been doing what they've always done. They go to work and they don't have a sense of urgency. They don't feel like they need to improve their skills. In fact, if what I see is any indication of what I think is happening in America, there is a growing tone of resentment from employees that go to work that are constantly thinking their boss is making them work hard. They're not approaching it like I did when I was in high school trying to make a sports team or every job I had, where I had an urgency every day to get better at my job. If my boss was like, David, you need to do more, I wasn't mad at him. I thought, yeah, give me an opportunity to do something better. Give me more training. Let me learn a new skill. And if I ever hit a point where my boss said, hey, thanks, now I want to just milk the crap out of you, but I'm not going to give you more opportunity, I left and found another job with all these new skills and with this new work ethic. That is hurting us, and it's not popular to talk about. What people want to hear is, here's a plan that the government has to make your life better. But we actually have the most autonomy and agency over our lives when we don't wait for the external environment to make our life better. We build our own skills to do it for ourselves.
Like Pat always talks about non-duplicatable assets, get some cards, just do something different. Because the reality is this, are interest rates coming down anytime soon, Tom?
No, but the end of this year, there's still going to be mortgages like 6.75.
Bingo. So rather than sit around being like, I don't have a house, just do something different. And that's what I've done. There you go.
You know, Rob, pull up what I just showed you, what I just texted you, if you could do that. After that fantastic Adam Luther King speech.
There it is. I have a dream.
Exactly.
Was just,
I can sum it up. Get mad and vote.
A-OK, Rob.
The voting isn't going to do anything about the home prices, though.
Yeah. I mean, look, there's a part of it here.
All right, I'm about to feed you some vegetables here. Don't blame me. Don't hate the messenger. If we put the perfect politician in place right now, you would not see affordability come back in the market. We've already squeezed the toothpaste out of the tube. You've already inflated the currency. You'd have to find a way to take currency out of the market, like some form of quantitative tightening, and it would put us into a crazy rough recession for a long period of time to force prices to come back down by taking money out of the economy. And nobody's going to vote for that. We're talking 15, 20, 25, 30 years of hardship. Just like a person who's become morbidly obese, to try to lose that weight is so much harder than it was when they gained it. That's what we would do. It isn't going to happen. Okay. So like the idea that if we just vote another person in there, it's going to make everything better. The best thing you could do for yourselves is get that idea out of your head right now. It's not going to happen. My opinion, the best thing that you could do if you want to build wealth is to learn how to climb up that escalator faster.
That if you can, you got to Rob. Close that and go to the bottom. There you go. Go a little lower. Okay, so check that out. So that's inventory versus price of existing homes. Now that only goes till 2022, right? The blue shows median price of existing homes. Keep climbing, right? The green is inventory, right? Is inventory. If inventory,
you can see in September we had of 2011. No, it's hard to read what they're actually going for. In the past, you had more inventory and lower prices, which is going to be homes are more affordable. And the pattern that you see here, I'm not sure what the dates are. I'm guessing this is 2011, 2012, 2013, up to 2021, which is probably when this the Census Bureau, they're pulling the information from there. You can see that the price of the house is way higher than the inventory that's out there. That is scary when you have a gap like this. And this is why people talk about it in their grandparents' generation and their parents' generation. It was easier to get those starter homes. It was easier to get into the market because it used to be that homes cost a lot less compared to how many of them were available.
Keeps going lower and lower and lower. Prices go up. I mean, this is like the basic supply and demand, right?
Yep.
So the whoever becomes and the types of homes they're no longer building is starter homes. Like it's almost like this. Like imagine you come to my dealership. What is the average salary coming out of college? Just give me a number. Let's say $50,000. Okay. So imagine in America, all of a sudden you go, if you're making 50 grand a year, what apartment rent can you afford at 50 grand a year? You can live by yourself. What rent can you?
$1,500, $2,000.
Let's say $1,500 a month. Let's say $1,500 a month. Okay, $1,500 a month. What am I getting? Studio, one bedroom. I'm not getting anything crazy.
Yeah, depends on what city you're living in, and you're getting a half a shoebox in New York. You're getting
on the city,
a decent apartment in
two-bedroom
Oklahoma
or a studio. Is that fair?
Yeah,
2 bedroom or studio.
A 2 and 2 or studio.
Yeah,
exactly.
So this is the problem, Adam. That's a real issue. That people who you're voting for, this has to be something that the younger audience, Gen Z, you have to be asking about. So imagine all of a sudden, the average kid coming out of college, rent he can afford $1,500. She can afford $1,500. What is the average car payment you can afford when you come out of college?
Jeez. You can't.
No, you can't afford. Just give me a number.
200.
No, you're not going to find nothing at 200.
Yeah, you're not going to find a car payment below $500 and a new car payment.
Rob, what do you want to say?
But what kind of car are you getting? Are you going cheap?
No, forget about it. What can you afford?
any
Give me a
car.
payment.
Yeah.
You could probably afford around $300, which isn't going to get you
That's what I'm
anything.
saying.
But
Okay.
if you're using the qualifying,
So to explain this analogy is the following. Imagine if 100% of dealerships across the country, you go to the dealership, you're making 50 grand a year, your rent is $1,500. The minimum cheapest car you can buy is $1,200.
Once.
You can't afford it.
Yeah.
So then you have to go, what's the alternative? Either Uber or get a bicycle or work close to his place. But there's not the jump doesn't.
Car prices are a crazy thing. I never thought I would see. Inflation is so crazy that the value of vehicles has always dropped once you buy it. That's the saying. As soon as you drive it off the lot, it's worth less because people want a new one, and used cars aren't worth as much. Prices of cars have risen with inflation faster than their value could drop. You can now buy a car, drive it, and sell it for more than what you paid for it. Don't get it twisted thinking you made money. You did not make money. You lost value. Just the price threw you off. The money that you have is becoming worth less and less to that degree. Now, if you pair this with the fact that there's a lower supply of vehicles available because we ship them in from other countries, you see why cars have become so unaffordable. The same thing is happening with vehicles and housing at the same time, which are the two biggest expenses for pretty much everybody in America.
Doesn't go from 0 to 300 to 600 to 900 to 1200. It goes 0 to what? 1200.
Yeah.
What Gen Z is saying is, man, I'm coming out. I need something in between. I can't go 0 to a $400,000 house. What if I could go from 0 to $200,000 house? This level is missing. That's the level that's missing. And builders,
he's talking about starter homes right now. The homes in the not nice areas, not super nice house, just bare bones, roof over your head, walls, temperature controlled environment, plumbing, not pretty is what people used to be, what they'd get a foothold in. And then they would get nicer and nicer and nicer as they built equity. That has been eliminated for many reasons. Part of it is government oversight and overregulation to where builders don't even want to build them. Part of it has been how hard it is to find manual labor. Because like I said earlier, people look for comfort. They don't want to do these construction type jobs, especially in areas where wages are really high and they can make money doing like tech type stuff, which unfortunately is being replaced by AI right now. But what happens is the only homes being built for the most part are expensive homes. They're like step up homes. They don't build starter homes hardly at all. And as real estate investors have been thirsty for yield and they got to find some way to put their money, and taxes have gone up on everyone. So they've gone into trying to build wealth through real estate instead of a W-2. At the same time that people have been coming into the country without a lot of money and needing to buy a house, what you're getting is everyone's fighting for those starter homes. And builders are not building them. They're building the expensive homes because, as you're going to hear about in a minute, the profit margins are higher.
Whoever's running for office, whatever in your state, your governor, Senate, you can talk to Congress. You can even bring this up on Twitter with others, with presidents, is what are we doing to build more starter homes in cities? What incentive is being
Tell you right now, nothing is being done in almost every city to do this.
Given to builders to build more starter homes? We need more starter homes. That's what's not being built for them to have the opportunity to buy something. Tom, you look like you want to say something.
No, I'm what I want to say is bingo, exactly right, PBD. $50,000 after taxes is approximately on a national
40
basis.
grand.
No, 36, which is exactly $3,000 a month. And if I spent $1,200 on rent, $1,500 on rent, that's half of my take home. You know, that's above 40%. So now I've got $1,500 left. That's why we're saying the most you could possibly.
All right, more vegetables coming your way. If this is true, if you're spending half your money on rent, yeah, I'm going to say it's pretty much impossible to get ahead. You're not going to build wealth like that. So what options do you have? You got to find a way to get that rent lower. Do you want to move in with your parents? Not fun. Do you want to rent a room from somebody else? Not fun. Can you see how all of these options are uncomfortable? They're not impossible. If we were at a war or if we were in a depression, everyone's going to move in with everyone else. We're going to share housing. We're going to learn to get along with each other. It's not impossible. In fact, in America, sharing a house with someone else, you're still living in a freaking castle compared to someone in Southeast Asia, Central America, South America. We have a very, very, very high expectation of a standard of living in America. And all I want to say is it is probably crushing your ability to build wealth that you're addicted to your comfort zone. If you're sitting here thinking, I could never live with someone else, I'm not going to tell you to, but I'm not going to take part in your lie in your own head that there is no way to build wealth. There is no way to build wealth you are willing to take on. The first, I bought like 8 investment properties before I ever bought a house for myself to live in. I rented a room from another cop for 3-4 years so that I could live in an expensive area in the Bay Area and work a job where I got a pretty high wage to be a police officer, but I kept my housing expenses low. Now, was it fun living and renting a room? No, but I was out working every day like a young man's supposed to. I didn't need a lot of comfort. I wasn't addicted to comfort. I was addicted to excellence and pursuing my vocation, which was learning everything I could about how to be a law enforcement officer and working all the overtime that I could work when it was available and planning for my future. Does everyone do that? No. Do some people have families and they can't do it? Yeah. But I'm not interested in arguing with everyone that has a one-off exception to why they can't do it. Look, there's a saying, if you believe you can or you can't, you're right. If you want to argue all the reasons why you're not willing to be uncomfortable, you don't need to argue it. Just take yourself out of the game. Just become a spectator watching people play the game of building wealth. Okay? I'm saying this out of love. But if you want to build wealth, you've got to retrain your brain from justifying all the reasons you can't do it and all the people to blame for why it's hard, and accept you need to look for ways you can. And at every avenue you look down, I promise you, friends, what you'll find is the comfort zone in your life is your enemy. You've subconsciously created things you're unwilling to change. The effort you put in at work, putting yourself in a position where you can take risks to get a better job, starting a company instead of working for somebody else, finding an extrapreneur type position where you come work for a person like me and you build your own business underneath my umbrella, operating with integrity. If you're the kind of person that's always looking for the easiest way, like if you're the loan officer that just lies to people to close deals, if you're the real estate agent that doesn't disclose everything because you just want to make as much money, if you overpromise and underdeliver, it catches up with you. It will be more comfortable, but you'll make less money. Now, I'm not pretending like it's easy. I know maybe better than everyone how hard this is because I'm in the front lines every day. But I've been forced to adapt the attitude that it does not matter how I want it to be. It is what it is. I did not vote for the policies that led to the escalator going down, but I'm on it. So either I run, and the question I ask is, how do I get in better shape to run faster? Or I don't run, and I just accept that I've chosen to be comfortable not running, and I'm going to lose wealth.
Possibly afford, and there would be 300. Now you got to live on $900, $200 a week for food, electricity, all the rest of the stuff. Tilt, as they say in pinball, that model doesn't work. It's exactly what Pat's talking about. There's nothing left.
Let me ask you, what's a bigger burden? What's a bigger burden? Is the bigger burden boomers who are 62 years old, 65 years old, 55 and up, who have worked their asses up? Let me just go 60 plus. Your kids are 30 years old. They're coming out of college. They're 25 years old. They're coming out of college. The burden of parents to support younger kids, or is it the bigger burden for kids to support aging parents? What's a bigger burden?
It's a way bigger burden for the parents who are still taking care of the kids.
What do you think?
I think the bigger burden we're going to see is the kids taking care of the parents once entitlements get cut and as things can become more expensive, because there are far more.
What are we going to do when parents are depending on their kids to take care of them and the kids have no skills, no assets, no work ethic, and they're addicted to their comfort zone like a heroin addict? What is the country going to look like when the 20-year-olds and the 25-year-olds that are working as hard as they can to not learn a trade and not have to work hard, that are addicted to social media and attention, are now 45-year-olds, 50-year-olds that are responsible for taking care of their aging parents, and they don't have the means to do it? What do you think is going to happen? Do you think that the government isn't going to step in with some kind of a solution that moves us further along the path of socialism? I can't see another alternative to that.
More boomers that need to be taken care of, and there are far more boomers in that boomer generation that don't have that don't have a responsible, or they don't have an adequate supplemental savings to go along with Social Security and Medicare. The number of those versus the number of kids they had, that's, I think, PBD, I think that gets worse year by year. I think that's the burden. I think sometimes the kids moving back in may help. What if your son or daughter who's single moves back in and pays you $400 a month?
Yeah.
And takes you to your medical appointments and balances out some of your food bill? I guess there's a lot of boomers.
He's talking about shared housing, which is the very same thing I've been saying is what will allow people to get by when times get tough. And I think we'd all be wise to start mentally preparing for scenarios like that now.
And there's not a lot of kids, and there's a lot of boomers without good savings.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
I guess the question is this a short-term problem or a long-term problem? Because as much as you're talking about the boomers, there's also the boomerangers, the boomerang generation, all these Gen Z kids that were trying to, make something of themselves between 2020 and 2024. COVID happened, reverse, boomerang. Now they're living back with the parents. What was the stat here? What percentage of
42%, 40 whatever percent
are still basically getting funding from their parents? What are we talking about here? Obviously, the kids are still relying on their parents. Short term, undoubtedly. Long term, yes. People are living longer. Like now I'm helping my mother pay for stuff. But when I was younger, my mother would help me. It's just the cycle of life. But you actually brought up a really good point about how there's no starter homes.
Yeah.
So this is sort of indicative of how the middle class is getting squeezed. You were basically saying that there's nothing in the middle, right?
You need that. There needs to be a level
So exactly, I agree with you. But what's the metaphor here is that we always hear that the widening gap between the rich and the poor, the K-shaped economy, that the middle class is getting squeezed, right? The wealth gap. So you're either rich or you're either poor. Yeah. So if you're rich, you're not really worried about what rent is or what the mortgage is. You can pay 10 grand a month or 20 grand a month, no problem. But if you're in the poor camp, And you always say, who's in your ear? Where you're getting your advice from? If you're 20 years old and you're getting advice from your 52-year-old father or your 82-year-old grandfather, they're more than likely giving you the wrong advice. Why would I say such a thing? Because the world has changed and they haven't adapted. They're still telling you, well, you got to go to college and you got to buy a house and you got to do what I did. No, you don't. Do the exact things that they did, because the world has changed completely. If you just do, like, if you're talking about, there's one problem that these kids all have, Tom. It's a 4-letter word and it's called math. The math doesn't add up for them to buy a house, to have a car payment, and to actually live a life. Last point, we did a segment a week ago called money dysmorphia. Do you remember that? Money dysmorphia, how Gen Z is just completely aloof when it comes to their money. They see on social media all these kids balling out, having the time of their lives, and they're like, oh, I could go and afford a Mercedes-Benz. Bitch, you can't afford a Mercedes-Benz. You make 50 grand a year. You need to make $120 to afford that Benz. Now they got an $800 car payment, and they're wondering why they can't live their life. Because you're doing the same things your parents did, and you can't afford it.
A technical question. How do you know they're a bitch?
I've seen it.
How do you
I've
know
seen it.
where you categorically tell the entire PBD podcast
Yes.
audience, you call them, but by the way, he thinks that. The rest of us don't. The rest of us think you're a big dog, capable of doing something special with your life if you choose to.
10% of the people out there is people in the comments.
Let me, if there's ever been a time for you to find ways to get better strategies to recreate yourself, so you can take your business to the next level in 2024, 2025, this is the time, because AI's speed of advancement is accelerating at pace that most people are not going to be able to follow unless if you're going out there getting these tactics and strategies from others. This is why once a year I host a conference called the Vault Conference. And this year we're doing it at Palm Beach Convention Center for 3.5 days. We go through a 200-page manual where you're filling in, you have case studies with other people you're doing case studies with on different issues that people are going through today. You got nearly 10,000 people in the room for you to network with, business partnerships, contacts with from 60+ countries, 180 different industries. And we'll have this going on at the Vault Conference in Palm Beach first week of September. And I've invited Dwayne Johnson. Dwayne Johnson will be there. This is the first time I'll be interviewing him publicly for 90 minutes. Some may get a chance to meet him backstage as well. Our whole crew will be there. We have a bunch of different surprises that we'll be making at the Vault Conference. But if you're somebody that's watching this and you're saying, wait a minute, all these people are making more money than ever before, why is wealth increasing for the wealthy more than it's increasing for middle and low income or maybe even upper class? Because they're getting the strategies and others are not. Because they're really realizing how to use the tools and others are not leveraging.
All right, that's a commercial for his Vault Conference. Let's go into some of the comments here. Values inflate up and debts are inflated away by Hansen. Solid point. When you're in an economy that continually inflates its currency and money becomes worth less, the money you have in the bank becomes worth less, but the money you owe to other people becomes more valuable to you. Because when I borrowed the loan to buy the house, the dollar was worth a lot of money. But when I pay it back over 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years, the dollars I'm paying back are worth less than the ones I borrowed. And the asset itself becomes worth more. And the rents that I'm collecting to pay back that money become worth more. I don't like the idea of borrowing money. I wish we lived in a Dave Ramsey type world where we could get away with just paying cash for everything. I don't know that you can outsave inflation unless you're Dave Ramsey and you make millions and millions and millions of dollars a month. For your average American, you kind of have to learn how to play this game. You have to learn how to play the game of borrowing money, which means you have to learn how to do it wisely. Another reason I think you should consider joining Spartan League. You're going to learn how to build a financial fortress, because if you're going to have to borrow money, you want to be able to do it carefully. If real estate's the best way to build wealth, you can lose wealth there too. You have to be more educated than ever. We don't live in the time where you can just buy a property, throw a tenant in there, and everything's going to be fine. You have to put a freeze on government spending. Would be hell in the beginning, but better in the long run. About time we saw David Greene and PBD on the same screen. Christopher Lloyd says, live with parents until you have a down payment to house hack. That's what I did. Been seeing this trend a lot with clients over the last year, and inflation is a living nightmare. Proud Liberal 24, the counterpart to David Greene 24, actually has a pretty good take here. Buy a home in an affordable area like Ohio and Iowa and work remotely. If you have a job where you can work remotely, this is a legit wealth building strategy where you are lowering your cost of living to stay comfortable, but you're keeping your wages high by working for a company that pays wages in an expensive area. By the way, this can work against you because in the future, as more and more people do this, companies are going to stop paying more because their headquarters are in San Jose or Dallas or South Florida, and they're going to start paying Iowa wages even to people that live in Miami because they know they can hire somebody in Ohio to do the same job. So beware, if this strategy only lasts for a certain period of time, it will not be there forever. Need a sense of urgency. Alternatively, buy a small place, for example, 1-bedroom condo, build equity, sell in 5 years, and move to a bigger place. Or 40-year-old boomers, I so envy adults who live with parents to save money for investment homes. Hey, David, I'm a contractor down here in New York. If you need work done in New York, all right. Thank you, Victor Jonathan. All right, let me know. What do you think? Tell me in the comments. Have you found it's harder than ever to save money? Do you think that it is hopeless to try to do this? Do you agree with me that maybe our expectation was set a little too low, that money should come easily, and we just need to have a stronger work ethic to make up for it? Can two things be true at the same time? Can it be true that we have inflated our currency, that AI is taking away jobs, that it is hard as hell to make it work, but we can respond by working twice as hard? That the answer might be to care more and try harder instead of disengaging and trying less. And do you think that the condition of your heart might have something to do with which of those paths you take? When you're faced with something difficult, your relationship is tougher. Can we all admit it's harder to be in relationships now than it was 200 years ago? We don't need each other as much. Women don't need men. They can go get their own job. They can take care of themselves, right? Men don't need women as much because they've replaced them with, I'm keeping this YouTube friendly, but ulterior ways of getting the job done that are not something to be proud of, but a lot of people are doing it. Yet we can still have healthy relationships. We're going to have to work harder. Life does not just come to you. You have to go take what you want. And in the process, you're going to become a better person. And can you agree that there's what's in your heart is going to determine what you do, which is why I talk so much about mindset instead of just practical advice. Everybody wants the practical advice. They're looking for the shortcut. But if you're not thinking the right way, you're probably not going to make the right decisions. Ivan says, hi, David. It's great to see your podcast here. And I started following you since BP and now in yours here. Excellent information. Pablo says, it's not harder. You just have to be more creative when the economy is booming. Moving money through the private sector is the way to go. And Proud Liberal 24 says the biggest problems are choice of degree or study. Many college degrees are useless. Study electrical engineering, physics, computer science, accounting, nursing, alternatively a union trade skill. Yeah, that's a great example. You can't just follow along wherever you're led. You can't just go to college because other people said go to college and take on student debt because everyone else is doing it and study something that's comfortable for you as opposed to practical. You got to do hard things. You build a nice body by doing hard things in the gym. You develop a martial arts skill by doing hard things in the dojo. You build wealth by doing hard things in the workplace. Thank you guys for being here. Please remember to subscribe to the channel and like it, and make sure that you hit that notification bell so you get told when I go live and you can join me. You can also follow me on social media at David Greene 24. And I'm now going to be streaming on Twitch and Rumble. So if you've got accounts over there, make sure you look up David Greene 24. I'm going to change the name to the David Greene Show soon, but for now it's David Greene 24. So make sure you go follow me, leave a comment about what you thought of the video, and check out SpartanLeague.com. Thanks, everybody.